Hey guys, Jake here, coming at you with another math problem today. Here's the problem we're going to be going over today. We're just going to estimate the area under the graph of f of x equals 1 plus x squared from x equals -1 to x equals 2 using 3 rectangles and using midpoints. So basically all we're doing here is estimating an integral using the midpoint rule, which, probably the best place to start with a problem like this, whether you're using the midpoint, left endpoint, or right endpoint rule, is to start with basically the formula of what those rules say. So let's start with that. So the midpoint rule basically says if we're trying to estimate the integral from a to b of some function f of x, we can do this by instead writing it as the sum from I equals 1 to n of f of x bar sub I times delta x. And you also need to keep in mind that delta x is just going to be b minus a over n. And each of your x sub I bar terms is going to can be thought of as 1/2 times x sub I minus 1 plus x sub I. Which basically all this means is taking the middle of each of your rectangles, or the average of, the edges of your rectangles. So I think it might actually be a little easier, instead of trying to figure out what all these x sub i's are using formulas. Another way you could think about it is if we just kind of sketch out a number line of where the edges of our rectangles are going to be. So what I mean by that is we know that we are trying to go from x equals -1 to x equals 2. And we know that we have to use 3 rectangles, right? So if we just kind of draw this on a number line real quick, we're going from x equals -1 to x equals 2. And we know we're going to do it using 3 rectangles. So what that tells us is we're basically going to split this, into 3 portions. They're all going to be the same width, which is going to be what this delta x is. But if we split this into 3 rectangles, let's think about what our delta x would be. It would just be basically the right edge, which is x equals 2, minus the left edge, which is -1. So we would get delta x equals 2 minus -1 over n, which is the number of rectangles, which is 3. So 2 minus -1 is 3. 3 over 3 is 1. So delta x is 1. So basically the width of each of our rectangles is going to be 1. So if we start at -1, we go over 1 unit, we're going to be at 0. From there, if we go over 1 unit, we're going to be at 1. So basically the edges of each of our rectangles, if you imagine our rectangles basically going up from here, is going to be at -1, 0, 1, and 2. If we're using the midpoint rule, our x sub I bar pieces is just going to be the middle of each of these chunks. So what we want to do is just figure out the middle of these 3 rectangles. Well, the middle of 0 and -1 is -1/2. The middle of 0 and 1 is +1/2. And the middle of 1 and 2 is 1/2, which is the same as 3/2. Right? So basically these are the x sub I bar terms that we want to use. -1/2, +1/2, and 3/2. So when we're going through this now, we already know that the 3 x values that we're going to plug into our f function is just going to be these 3 x values here. And then basically what we need to do is just plug those 3 things into our function f, which was given to us as 1 plus x squared. And then whatever we get out of that, we need to multiply it by dx, which dx is just 1. So basically what this sum is going to turn into is just, f of this first x value times dx, which is 1, plus f of our next x value, which is 1/2, times dx, which is 1, plus f of our last x value, 3/2, times dx, which is 1. So basically this is what we're going to get from this. So now all we need to do is go to our function f of x, which was given, and we need to plug in these different x values and see what we get. So plugging in -1/2 in here, we're going to get 1 plus -1/2 squared. -1/2 squared is just going to be 1/4, plus 1 is going to be 5/4. And then for our next term, we're going to get 1 plus 1/2 squared, which again, 1/2 squared is going to give us 1/4, plus 1 is also going to give us 5/4. And then for our last term here, we're going to get 1 plus 3/2 squared. And then, all these are going to be times 1, but that doesn't actually change their value. So 3/2 squared is going to be 9/4, plus 1 is going to be 13/4. So then we just need to sum up these three terms. 5/4 plus 5/4 is going to be 10/4, plus 13/4 is going to be 23/4. So this is our approximation of the area under this curve from x equals 1 to x equals -1 to x equals 2 using the midpoint rule is going to be 23/4. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel. Those are great ways to help support the channel so I can keep making more videos like this. Thank you and see you next time.